Attention! And welcome to the Husker Army Podcast. With your hosts, Husker fanatic Brian Knudsen, former Husker wide receiver Kenny Cheatham, and Husker recruiting guru Matt Sass.
What's going on, everybody? Fall in at attention. You're locked into Season 2, Episode 1 of the Husker Army Podcast, brought to you by the Husker Army Facebook fan page. Check them out. Matthew Malone, thank you, my brother. Guys, I am your host, Brian Knudsen. With me, as always, Mr. Kenny, a.k.a. KC, former Husker wide receiver. And today, for the first episode to kick off Season 2, we have former Husker multinational champion, Mr. Clester Johnson. Thank you so much for joining today, my man.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, here we go.
Happy to be here.
Let's kick it off. It is what it is. You know, every podcast has been covering coverage about Rhule from day one since he was hired to all the way through Big Ten Media Days, spring ball, everything. You can't cover it any more than it's already been covered. That's why I thank God we only do this during football season. But Rhule's doing the right things, in my opinion, guys. He's implementing the things he's talking about instead of just talking about it. We've seen tight ends being used as hybrid fullbacks. We have seen the team moving into dorms together instead of living separately. He's all about the family and culture, which he brings up in almost every interview. The tradition of Nebraska. Now, Kenny, Clester, you guys played here in the heyday, the glory days, the days when losing wasn't even a thought in the mind. Now, what have you guys seen out of Rhule so far that he's implementing, especially with the way he wants to run this offense? Kenny, your thoughts?
Honestly, this is the honest to God opinion and this observation. I don't know. And I'm going to tell you why I don't know. And this is the truth. What I do every season after the year's off, I block everything related to Nebraska, Huskers on all my social media accounts. And I tell you why. Because when we come into the season, I want to come into the season with an unjaded opinion once the games start being played. I don't want to hear about practices. I don't want to hear about the stuff we're getting ready to talk about because I want to see it. I don't watch interviews because it can kind of sway you to think a certain way. So I'm going to be the one on this end saying, I have no idea. I don't know who they signed. I don't know who the coaches are. These are honest to God truths. I want to see the product on the field, and I want to see wins and losses. So you guys get more, like I always say at the beginning of every year, Brian, every show, I don't know. I don't pay attention to that because I want to see. It's about W's and L's for me. But if you guys are saying things are being placed, I just want to see it with my own eyes once the season starts. So Clester might have more insight being there than I do in regards to what they're doing.
You know what? I can respect everything that Kenny said, and I think that's a very good route to go for especially most Husker fans, because like Kenny said, it's very easy to drink the Kool-Aid and get caught up in all the hype. I've seen it happen here for the last, I'm still here in Nebraska. So when Kenny is talking, I'm just going, it's incredibly true, because even me being here in Nebraska, listening to different guys on the internet or the news or just little clips of what you hear is going on, you can go like, man, they have a deep running back core. They got this new quarterback in, and you start to think in your mind that, man, I think they've turned the corner. And then the season goes by and you go, nothing's changed, right? But what differences I've seen so far with Coach Rhule is this. I felt that, and this is not a shit on Scott Frost deal. Can I say that on the podcast?
Oh, absolutely. You're good.
Yeah.
But I felt like Scott kind of came in with an entitled personality. He's been kind of a golden boy his whole career through high school, through college. You know, he leaves Stanford, comes to Nebraska, wins the championship, goes pro. He's under some great people. So I feel like, I'm not going to say Scott didn't work hard, but I felt like he's had some pretty good paths through life. And then you get this big, huge job in Nebraska after having one successful season at UCF. You get this huge Nebraska job. And we can all tell that he didn't really put in the work like he needed to. One of the things I love that Coach Rhule did just here in the state of Nebraska is he wanted to lock down the state. So he's now talking to Vershawn Jackson. He's talking to the Damon Biddies. He's talking to Steve Warner. He talks to myself. You know, I've communicated with him. You know, guys who may have some connection to the youth here, so that when a great player come out of the state, he's like, you know what, at least I'm going to get that guy. I have a path to that guy. And Scott wanted no parts of any of us, right? Wow. And I was shocked by that. Now, he talked to me because he wanted my son. But other than that, I can't even tell you how many times Vershawn say, man, he never answered my text messages or he don't answer my phone calls. Vershawn would say, Damon would say, man, it may be 2 or 3 months before he get back with me. So, number one, that's not how you treat your teammates. You know, if that was your teammate, I would think they would have a little bit of a priority, you know, towards just a regular guy on the street. But he just didn't act that way. So one thing Coach Rhule is doing is he is entrenched in the community. I can't say that about him. But other than that, I'm like, Kenny, I got to see what's going to happen, how he's going to implement the things he's talking about.
Right.
Yeah, and Kenny, to touch on what Clester says there about how Rhule is open door policy, former players, former coaches, he wants to hear from them. That was something that me and you talked about just a few nights ago when we were texting back and forth. That was something you were worried about that could possibly happen again, like when Callahan came in.
Right.
Now, with Clester saying this should put you a little bit at ease, I would think, right?
It did because, you know, I think a lot of times.
Come home, Kenny. Come home, man. We need you.
I think a lot of times people think former players have something against the program. Now, you might get your guys that might be a little bit bitter about certain situations, but 99.9% of us want to see the program be successful. And the things we would like to say, if we're able to speak to them, I would think, and I would assume, is going to be positive stuff. And as far as like, hey, there's a kid here you might want to look at. You have all these other major schools looking at them. We should be looking at them too, especially in the state of Nebraska. One of the key things Coach Osborne said to us in the meeting, I think Clester may have been gone or the year after. He sat there and said, watching film, he said, these teams don't have to leave their state to be great. We have to go outside of our state to get the other kids.
Yep.
That's why we lock in our in-state kids. And if he's doing that and really putting the effort and reaching out to former players who have access to those communities, youth football leagues, players or friends with coaches, you go for that. Because that gives those kids a good positive image of the University of Nebraska. And me and Clester spoke about a year or so ago in text, and what he said, I said, I feel that. He said, Ken, I was like, Clester, they own you, bro, about your boy. And he was like, yeah, Kenny. He was like, yeah, you know, I don't pay too much attention. But he was like, they have to understand what these kids are seeing and what my son is seeing is not the Nebraska we grew up seeing. So they're not seeing winning, persistent every year. So he said they hear about it, but they don't see it. So when these other schools are looking at them, of course they're going to be looking at the other schools. So where when we were here, it was Nebraska than everybody else. So, you know, if he can get that back, that'll be good.
let me add something on top of what Kitty is saying. Let me double down on what Kitty said. They're not seeing bowl games. They're not seeing winning seasons. They're not seeing draft picks. And not to say that all these kids are going to be drafted, but we all had hope that potentially one day that could be us, right? So you need to see that happening, right? Because you never know how these kids are going to develop and turn out. And if it ain't happening in Nebraska, you ain't going to bowl games. You don't have winning seasons. And a lot of times the fans could be their own worst enemy because these recruits sometimes will jump online and listening to what everybody is saying. And if they're shitting on the coaching and coaching moves and why did he do this and he's dumb and like recruits, they see that. They, especially the kids here in Nebraska, it's such a high volume of stuff going on in the media here in Nebraska because this is the only thing here, in regards to football.
Bud
There's
Crawford,
no pro teams here.
And Bud Crawford. Yeah, we got Bud Crawford. Baddest man on the planet.
It's Husker football and Bud Crawford is inching up, inching up a little bit. But you got Creighton basketball. But listen, if you talk Creighton basketball and Husker football overwhelmingly dominates everything,
Yes.
So if fans are talking, kids can hear that and they're going, why do I want to go and be a part of that? They need to get it together before I go down there. So that's how it's been.
Because it always seems like there's something in disarray.
Yeah.
It always appears that there's something in disarray.
Yep.
Now what?
Like I said, you think about it with the firing of Coach Pelini, going into Coach Riley, going into Scott Frost, and going into it's been disarray, guys. It's literally been disarray. Pelini, we firing him. Then you have the meeting with players, somebody filming the meeting and putting it out, but we don't like him because what's going on and this and that. Then we hire Coach Riley. He's supposed to be this and that. Oh, the first year. Then he had a 10-win season, but then that third year he's on the hot seat in disarray. Then we get rid of him. The pressure gets Coach Frost in here, and we get Coach Frost in here. Always like these expectations, and then they're not doing this, and then the kids, it's it's been crazy. Think about this last 7-8 years.
How about the last decade?
It's been ridiculous. And if I'm a kid, one of the major things that drew a lot of kids to Nebraska from out of state was coaching stability.
Yeah.
Think about that. Coaching stability. And when I looked at it, those coaches have been there for years.
We'd had trainers that had been here 15 plus years.
20, 30 years. But, it was stability. I mean, but it was a different era of college football. You didn't have all this social media and pressure to do all these things now. You think people like Coach Osborne and Coach Bobby Bowden would have been fired. They had those years. I mean, that's just the era we're in. But, I mean, with that helter-skelter, and I'm a recruit, and I'm looking at all of this going on, like Clester said, and people are on and then mad at some of the kids and this and that because they don't go here and this and that. No, why would I go there? Why would I deal with that? Especially if I'm an in-state kid. Why would I go there and deal with that? Nah, I'll go somewhere else. I don't have to deal with that.
I need a break.
And that's what I like. I mean, yeah, go ahead, Clester. Go ahead.
So I was just going to say, obviously, I've been in the fire because I've had 3 kids, 3 sons that none of them went to Nebraska, right? My 2 oldest never got a Nebraska offer. I thought my oldest one was good enough to play, but I was never upset. I'm being real honest with you. I was never upset that they didn't get offers because they had offers from other schools, but I always told my sons, you are who recruits you. And I tell kids that all the time.
Yep.
You are who recruits you. So if you're not getting the offers from the big schools, like Kenny, if you're that guy, if you're that good like that, it's really hard to miss that kid.
Right.
So, my oldest son, he was a Wyoming, Colorado State, level player. Could he have been better? Yeah, he could have, but he didn't. I just feel like he didn't put in the kind of work he needed to be there.
Right.
But there was a lot of people here in the state of Nebraska thought that he should have, because he broke all the state records. He actually still has state records for receiving, and never got caught from behind. He's 6'2". He had really good ball skills, but he didn't get an offer. I do know Barney Cotton was going hard to get my son an offer, but I just know that Pelini and Coach Fisher at the time, along with Kenny's coach, Coach Brown, just didn't endorse. I knew he was gonna laugh when I said that. they just didn't go hard. They didn't go hard. They didn't endorse it like they could have.
Right.
Cade, my son, who's with Seattle, did not fit the measurables. Kenny and I, big, strong kids coming out of high school. Cade still had a few more years before he came into his man body. So he ended up going where he needed to go, which was South Dakota State. Had a great career there. Matter of fact, if he would have walked on to Nebraska, you probably would have never heard of him again. So I'm actually happy he went to a small school. And some of these players in high school, they see the big schools on TV, but the ultimate goal is to play, right? You want to play. And sometimes you can go to one of these smaller schools, South Dakota State, and ball out and develop. It's because you're playing. You're actually playing and getting better and getting more confident. And that's what happened to Cade. I think everybody here in the state of Nebraska would have never guessed that Cade would be a professional player. It's just because he just developed. Now, Keegan was the one who had all the tools, big, strong, incredibly fast. But he was the one that was like, Dad, when do you think that they're going to go to a bowl game? Dad, when do you think that, they're going to start having some draft picks? And I could not honestly answer that question. I just couldn't answer the question. And when he saw me pitter-pattering around like unsure, he was like, you know what? I'm just going to go where I think I'm going to be happy.
Right.
So that's what happened.
And it makes sense. I mean, you think about the situation with your boys. Okay, they didn't look at him. But here's number 3. He's seen 1 and 2. It's always one of the younger ones that are better than the first 2 and the older ones, because they've seen the work and they've seen what they have to do, and it's the competitive nature of being siblings. I'm better than these dudes, so I'm going to do everything better than each one of them. And then, like, this is when we were talking, especially with him, and he said that, and I was like, you're right. So he's looking at that, and he's looking at, because believe it or not, people, most kids are looking at the chance to hopefully go to the next level. That's everyone's dream as an athlete. So of course we go to school, we get that education, but let's come back to reality. Kids are looking at the next level. You know why Alabama's getting those guys? They know it's a farm system to the NFL. You know why Ohio State and all these top programs, Clemson, all of these guys are getting those players? Oh, Miami, oh, Florida State, oh, Florida. But those schools always have, but they were top. And you know why Nebraska was getting those guys? It was a farm system to the NFL. So you get players coming in with a totally different mentality when they step on campus. I'm going to go to school and do everything I need to do to be eligible to get my degree, but I'm here to try to go to the next level. So now you're getting guys coming in with an edge on them. There's a different attitude. And when you are not seeing that as a recruit, when you go in there with 5, 10 live dogs or 8 live dogs in your position instead of 1 or 2, that's the difference.
What are you trying to do?
You ate up in that locker room. So I understand.
Let me add something though, Kenny and Brian. I have hope because I got one more coming. Okay.
A little dude.
Yeah.
I got a 6-year-old, and I always tell Husker fans, you know what? I don't know what's gonna happen in the future. But if they get their stuff together, I'm certainly definitely gonna try to guide my son at least have one kid.
At least have one.
At least have one.
A legacy. You just need one legacy. That's all you need.
I just need one.
And see, to go back on what you said, Clester, and then to also touch on what me and you talked about before this, Kenny. Clester, you're talking about how Rhule's welcoming the former players, the former coaches. It's a doors wide open system. Just everybody come in. It's nice to see you, Kenny. For me, that warms my heart. That makes me feel like not only is this man saying these things, but he's doing it. And not on this is probably the last time I'm going to bring up Frost. And I'm done beating a dead horse, but already that's miles above everything we heard Frost was screwing up with. Whether they're rumors, whether they're true, it doesn't matter. What we've heard was enough, and if there's even a sliver of truth to it, Rhule's already passed him by eons. And what I love about Rhule, literally doing what he says, and we're seeing it. As he's said already, he wanted to implement a fullback back into this offense. What did we see at the spring game? We heard all about it leading up to it. We saw tight ends going in and playing fullback and playing well at fullback. Now, look, I know a fullback is not the end all be all position in football, and maybe we hold it for a little more higher regard in Nebraska just because that's all we knew for 5, 6 decades, folks. That's all we knew. So having a fullback come back warms my heart. The only thing I'm worried about is using a tight end as a hybrid when we're a little bit thin at that position already. Now, we have a great recruit coming in, I believe, next season, Isaac Dickey. Shout out to you, young man. This kid's a beast. I mean, seriously, he's a senior in high school this year. He weighs 205, and I just watched him put up, I think it was like 375 on the bench the other day on Twitter. I mean, it's a freak of nature. So right now, with what Rhule's got to do using a tight end as a hybrid for the most part, should we be worried about getting spread too thin at the tight end position?
I would say no. It depends because most of the tight ends are in the semi. They have been in professional football that what they call in the H-back position for years, where you see them lining off the tackle and stuff. It just depends on what they're using them for. I mean, eventually they'll come around. This is year one. Depending on what type of offense he runs, if he runs the same one he ran at Baylor or tried to run with Carolina, it's all the way to see because you're dealing with kids and you're dealing with kids that have to develop. We're not going to get too many kids like I said, the Alabama and all those other schools who are getting kids coming in with 90% of that class ready to play right away. So we might take some time to develop one in a year or two. Old Nebraska used to get kids that can play right away, but the style was to redshirt a lot of kids to get them physically ready for the way the program ran. So Clester can tell you in his class, he probably had 20, 25 dudes that could have played right away. Wouldn't have been that much, but they were possibly physically ready to play. So if he runs that and gets the kids prepared, we should be fine. I mean, and if someone else can step up, if the other person can't do it, step up. It's time to shine. I mean, it's just what it is.
So yeah, Kenny went right into where I was going to go. What I was going to say was, I know as fans really start to get excited about recruiting. And the thing about Nebraska recruiting, especially in these recent years, is I don't get excited about recruiting because I know that these kids are not contributing for another 2 to 3 years at least, probably 3 for most. I can't even begin to tell you, when we go back and look at the last 10 recruiting classes, it's hard. We're going to be hard pressed to find very many impact players. There haven't been very many impact players. So me looking at some kid in high school benching 375, that says nothing to me. It means nothing to me. How
Till he's here.
how is that going to translate to what he's going to do when he gets to Nebraska? And like Kenny said, so out of my freshman class, we had Abdul Muhammad, we had Troy Dumas, we had Doug Coleman, Aaron Graham. We had about 4 or 5 that actually came in and didn't redshirt and played, which which was phenomenal. And we had another one, Dwayne Harris, that probably could have played if he wasn't
Ooh.
Prop 48. We had so then the following year, Tommy, Amon came in '95. We had Grant Wistrom. We had some guys that were coming in as true freshmen, like Kenny said, that could make an impact. But I just don't feel at this point we're there. I would be happy to see a few kids come in and contribute right away, but I'm not excited right now until I see what happens after this first year with Coach Rhule, because right now we're very happy with Coach Rhule. We're very happy. Do y'all know why we're happy with him? Y'all know why we're
Nothing's
happy
gone
with Coach
wrong.
Rhule?
Nothing's gone wrong. We haven't
We ain't
lost.
played the game.
Yeah.
We
Hey,
ain't
listen,
lost.
this right now is the height of his popularity right now. This is the height of Coach Rhule's popularity, because he's going to lose some games this year, and then it's going to. Then we want to see now what are the fans going to be saying now. So after this first year, we're going to then be able to kind of figure out how we feel about this coach's first impression, because it's hard to make a good first impression after year one, right?
Mhm.
So this year he has to make a really good first impression, or it just goes downhill from there.
Right. And for me, it's because you hit that right on the nail on the head. For me, if he does opposite, even if they struggle this year or have a year like Coach Riley, Coach Frost did in their first year, and not take the Coach Frost approach, where everything was about what the kids weren't doing.
Yeah.
And the previous staff, he'll be fine. I had a problem with that when it was happening, and my old Twitter page got deleted because I was taking a break, and I didn't know after 30 days after deactivated it deletes it. But I had some comments on there saying that's not okay. Once you take over a team, they're your kids.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They become your kids. Your job is to coach them up. And believe it or not, whatever coach went to Texas a few years ago, that was under Urban Meyer echoed that same thing. Said, I want to hear that. They're your kids. Once you get there, you coach them up.
Yep.
And my biggest issue with all of that is, which made a lot of Nebraska fans, unfortunately, give a judgment of the players, was that. They said, oh, they're soft. They're this. They're down to Coach Riley. Where are you getting that from? Where are you getting that from?
Yeah.
Because that's been put out to you. Oh, these kids are this and that. But then here's the flip side. A lot of those kids, because Coach Riley's players, a lot of those kids that were a lot of those kids that were drafted, that were drafted or free agent, was Coach Riley's players.
Yeah.
Cam Taylor Brits, the Dolmans, a lot of those guys were his guys.
Yeah.
So, were they that bad, or was it? You get what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
You like Clester said, this is the height of his peak. Everything he says to the media and people is going to be golden. Oh, Coach Rhule, I don't want to hear that, brother. I want to see Saturday. Don't give me no spiel, because I tell all of them, you're a car salesman until I see differently.
Yep.
Until I see better than 9-3, it's a failure. I'm going to say it. Because 9-3 is where we're cutting people off at. If we're not better than 9-3 any time, failure. Regardless of what people want to hear about, he's building coaching. No. Better than 9-3. Outside
for me, I'm with Clester when it comes to recruits. I don't usually get excited about any recruit, because you never know what's going to happen before they get here. Okay, minds can change, coaches can change, anything can change. Injury can happen.
You can get humbled.
For me, the only reason I brought up Isaac is just this kid is completely all in. So, I mean, he's going to be here regardless. He's coming. There's no way this dude's changing his mind. He is all in, as everybody would say. So, for me, I get excited about the young man because he's already a fullback. He loves the position. That's what he's coming here for. And we just like hard-nosed fullbacks in Nebraska. Let's just face it. It is what it
Old
is.
school.
Exactly. You got to get somebody that's willing to put their head down, go between the tackles, and meet a linebacker head on and put them on their ass.
Like
That's
Joe
really
Rock-
what you're looking for.
Like Corey, Joe Rockhead.
Oh,
Now you can't.
I would say this, Brian. There's not going to be one position that's a savior. We are excited to hear about it, but I want to know how it translates to wins, because that's all that matters now. Is okay. How are we going to use the fullback to win games? How are we going to use like a few years ago? And my son to this day still just perturbed about all the Thomas Fedoni hype, right?
yeah.
Because I don't believe that a tight end is a savior to a program. It's always great to have a good high-ranking recruit, but a tight end is not a savior. It's a good part to have, but it ain't a savior. Now, tell me you got a 5-star quarterback. That's a savior to a program. Like Tommy Frazier changed the landscape of Nebraska football. You know, Eric Crouch, you know, just his talent alone put that team in position to play for a national championship, and that probably wasn't a national championship team, right? So
Probably not.
I will get excited about a top-notch quarterback versus a tight end or a running back, because the quarterback is he's just he can control all aspects of what's going on out there in the field. So I mean, look at Johnny Manziel, right? I know y'all probably seen that documentary on Netflix.
I gotta check it out. I heard about it.
I mean, he changed the landscape of Texas A&M football. So I get excited about that. I don't get excited about tight ends.
Yep. I mean, you know, you brought it up, Clester. You brought up quarterbacks, man. So we might as well talk about it. Sims transferring here from Georgia Tech. And look, I'll be honest. When they made that announcement, he was coming here. I was like, oh, great. How's this going to go? And well, we found out Thompson left. So, yeah. And look, I've watched Sims' game film from while he was at Georgia Tech. Can I honestly say my first impression, I wasn't that impressed. I was like, oh my God, he doesn't really go through progressions. He's got a lot of interceptions, which has been public in the media. Everybody's talked about it. His accuracy was a bit off. A lot of times he'd look to run before throw. But then I got to see him in the spring game, guys. And what I saw from that Georgia Tech film to what I saw in the spring game was night and day to me. I all of a sudden actually believed in the young man, and I was like, all right, he made the right decision. And here's the best part, and it goes back to Rhule. I think it's because we have coaches that are willing to coach these young men the correct way.
Don't be fooled, Brian. Okay?
I know.
It's the spring game now. That's a very controlled environment. It is meant to make these guys look good and get the fans excited, okay?
The arm strength looked good.
Like Kenny said, and like you just said, let's see if he can keep the interceptions down in actual games, right? When the other team is not giving you the best look. They're not there to make you look good, right? So let's see if he's going to make the right decision when people flip it and change it up on him. Is he going to try to, go through his progressions and save his body and not try to run, make the correct audibles? That's what I'm looking for. How does that translate into wins? And
be able to be a general on the field.
Correct.
Be a leader.
I have a prediction on what I think their win-loss record is going to be this year.
Oh,
unless if y'all ask
go right ahead.
Clester,
we want to know. We want to know.
I do have a prediction, and I'm gonna tell you what. My last 5-6 years have been spot on.
Oh boy.
Kenny, you got a prediction this year, or what you think? You got a feel for what you think is gonna happen?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, like I said, like going back to the quarterback, I know what Brian's looking at and seeing, and then but see, I analyze. Like here's what you got to understand with us, B. We analyze big picture. I look at that
Yeah.
entire big picture. I like Casey Thompson and what he brought to the team last year.
Myself as well.
Then this kid, I heard this kid was coming in a little bit, initially because it started quick before I started blocking all this stuff. And I'll catch something someone put on Twitter every now and then, but I ignore it. But I said, okay, I look at, of course, want to see him do well, but then I say, he was at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech doesn't lack the talent.
No.
Why wasn't he successful? Could it have been coaching or could it have been decision making? Hearing all of those things. You know what I mean? So I look at that and I say, okay, it wasn't a situation where you say Thompson came in from Texas and he was doing well and then that got injured and how that played out.
Yeah.
That's different. But as far as prediction, I do have one. I have to be honest. I'll say it at the end.
Is this the show, or y'all holding that for another show? Is this
No, we're definitely gonna do this.
No, we can
We're
do it.
definitely doing this.
I'm just skeptical because, like Clester said, every year, like I said, that's why I block the stuff. You hear the hype, and we're going, and I'm like, nah.
And I'm a fan. I get to drink the Rhule Aid, man.
I'm like, I don't know. So
I'm taking a break.
I'll get that a little later. So we'll see.
Hey, listen, that's how they keep you buying all that stuff back there behind you. You know?
Exactly. See? And yeah. The great thing is most of this is like Christmas and birthday presents.
Yeah,
so
if
I'm
you
good.
didn't drink the Kool-Aid, you wouldn't be buying all that stuff.
No, absolutely not. There's no way I would. All right, we'll save the predictions for season here in just about 5 or 10 minutes. Real quick, I wanted to touch on where we look the deepest at, and that's obviously the running back stable. I mean, the way we're seeing Gabe Ervin Jr. look right now, the dude looks like a tank. Looks like he's running well. And look, I know everybody's talking about the whole other rest of the running backs, Grant and all them. Everybody needs to talk about Rhule Johnson. I'm sorry. The young man deserves the shot. He's put in the work, and he's not the biggest, but he has no problem going in between the tackles on the line and meeting somebody head on at full speed. And he's full speed by the time he hits the line.
Right.
So with the running back stable, I'm excited with them. As long as the offensive line does somewhat of their damn job this year and just gives them a hole, give them a sliver, give them anything, a piece of paper to get through, we should be all right at that position, even barring injuries.
So who are the running backs this year?
Yeah. Right now we're looking at Gabe Ervin Jr. He's looking awesome. Obviously Anthony Grant. We've had and here's what sucks. We've had guys leave. We had guys graduate. And so as of right now, off the top of my head, and I know everybody that's watching or listening is probably screaming at me for being a horrible fan, but I only know of the three right now, and that is Grant, Rhule, and Ervin Jr. Those are the three big ones to me, and those are the three that deserve to actually see it right now. They're the ones that have proven something. And in my opinion, I know Grant is great, and I love the young man, and everybody does, but I would still put Rhule over him.
I think Rhule is. First of all, I think they need to find a way to play them all. I see Rhule more of a slot type player.
Yeah.
He's shifty, fast, so I think they need to have them both on the field. I think Anthony Grant showed why he was Junior College Player of the Year. You got to keep playing that dude. He's tough.
Yeah.
He's shifty and fast. So I think he has the edge over everybody else. Gabe,
especially when he runs vertical.
Yeah.
Say that
and
again,
he did.
Kenny?
I said, especially when he runs vertical. He started cutting laterally too much last
In the
year.
spring game, he worked on that very well. He wasn't doing that. It was more north and south.
Go ahead, bro. Let me cut you off.
And then obviously most teams have sort of a 1-2. So I see Anthony Grant and Gabe Urban as that 1-2 connection, power back slash, one's more of a home run hitter, one's going to get you, 5 to 10 yards. Gabe is a little bit bigger than Anthony Grant, but then I just see Rhule Johnson as, a slot player. He can also run some of those jet sweeps. I feel like he has that kind of ability. He can also line up in the backfield, give teams a different look. I see him being placed on different places on offense. I think he's more flexible. He's more adjustable than the other two.
Makes sense.
I love it.
Makes sense to me.
It just seems like we finally really got some depth at that position that's gonna be able to take us through an entire season. If one goes down, we've got two very capable right away. And like I said, Husker fans, I'm sorry, I don't know everybody on the roster. It's this day and age, it's so hard to keep up with it with the transfer portal. Everything, you don't ever know who's here anymore. For God's sake, it's so much harder to keep track of this shit now than it was.
The other guys you won't really like. Isaiah Harris is a kid out of Omaha. He's kind of like a shifty. He's sort of like a Rhule Johnson, but smaller. Then you have a Cole Ballard. He's another running back out of Omaha. Emmett Johnson, Quentin Ives. Those are unproven. I just feel like they're unproven players. Not to say that they can't come in and make an impact. We just don't know who they are right now and what they can do. But the three ones that you need to focus on are the ones you're talking about, because they have game experience and we know what they can do.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we're approaching around the 40-minute mark, so this is where we like to keep the show around. Now that we're using StreamYard, awesome. Thank you, Ken from Gen Red Podcast, dude. Great suggestion. It works great. Still a learning curve, first time, but we're getting there. It's awesome to use. So we like to keep it around the 40, 50-minute range here, inside that hour. Don't like to run too long. So I know we only covered a few things for you guys, but look, we're getting to the best part of it here, and that's when you get two former Huskers telling you how they think this season's going to play out, and then you get to hear the stupid-ass fan perspective of it. So, Clester, you were aching for this, so I want to put you on the hot seat right away. I want to have you go right out the gate.
Okay, I'll try to go as fast as I can so that
Take your time.
So we can hear Kenny's. I want to hear his expertise also. So I'm looking at the schedule right now, and I'm gonna break it down to you why I think it's gonna happen. It's gonna play out like it is. Okay. I feel like Nebraska loses its first two games. Okay. Minnesota PJ Fleck has had Nebraska's number, right?
Yep. Got to agree.
They have a fairly good team back, and it's at their home. You got a new Nebraska staff trying to learn who they are as a staff. I think it's really tough to go on the road, and you have to adjust to each other's style in the fire, right? So, no, we should run this. No, they're doing this. Where the other staff, they've been together. They've been together for a while, and they're at home. I just don't see Nebraska winning that, right? The Colorado game has been really tough for me because it's really hard to figure out what Deion is going to do at the next level. But I do know that they have an incredible amount of talent. They're going to be at home. Deion is a master motivator. I know he's got a great coaching staff. It's just really hard for me to see them losing their initial home game for Deion. So I think that they lose. They're coming out the gate 0-2, but I think that they play hard. Because one thing I know Coach Rhule will do is when you look at what he did at Baylor and you look at what he did at Temple on the college level, he is a good person to turn a program around. The only thing he hasn't been able to do is sustain for a long period of time.
Yeah.
So I know within these first few years, I think that Nebraska is going to see some improvements there because he's not easy on his players. He go hard. And I know he goes hard because my son Cade had Coach Rhule as a coach at the Senior Bowl.
Oh,
And he's like, Dad, Dad, Coach Rhule is hardcore. Like everybody hated him. And that was the Senior Bowl when the guys were, auditioning for the NFL. He said Coach Rhule he hardcore. So I know he's being that way down there. And I don't know if y'all heard the bad news, but Xavier Betts just told Coach Rhule, that his heart ain't in it. And I know part of it is Coach Rhule, he goes hard. So we come out the gate 0-2. I feel like we win our next 2 games, okay? We win 2 in a row. We beat Colorado, and then there is Northern Illinois. Listen, I know Northern Illinois, they lost everything. They don't have a good team. I think we win our first game there.
okay.
La Tech is tricky, right? La Tech is tricky because they sling that ball all over the place.
Mhm.
And I'm only going to give us the win because we're at home. I think that Coach Rhule, I think the game is going to probably be closer than what we want it to be, but that's been Nebraska for the last few years. There's been no game that's been a guarantee. No game is a guarantee. So we 2-2, okay? Michigan comes to town. They're number 2 in the country. Nope, no chance. Okay, we don't beat Michigan. Matter of fact, I think Michigan beats us by at least 3 touchdowns.
Oh,
Yes. The game that's tricky for me is Illinois, at Illinois, because I think that their coach, why is his name slipping me right now?
Is it
Bielema, Brett Bielema.
Yeah, Bielema.
Was at Wisconsin.
Yep.
He is starting to kind of figure out how he wants to play in the Big Ten, and they actually were pretty decent last year. They won more games than what people expected.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's close. I think Nebraska loses because Nebraska just haven't shown the ability to win on the road. And Coach Bielema is a good coach. So I say we're 2-4 right there. Next game, we play Northwestern. We're going to smoke them at home. We're smoking Northwestern. They lost their coach. They lost a lot of players.
Yeah.
They're in turmoil. We beat them 3-4. Then Purdue comes to town. They lost their coach. They lost their quarterback, their best receivers, running backs. We beat them. They're 4-4. At Michigan State. Now, this is another game that's tricky. But now we're 4-4. We're starting to kind of figure out who we are. I think we finally go on the road. Michigan State has had one fluky good year. Although I like their coach, they've only had one good year. We actually should have beat them in their best year with their really good running back. They run back that punt when they we had a terrible punt coverage team. They take a punt back on us and win the game. I think we revenge that loss. Okay, we revenge that loss. Okay, now we're 6-4. Okay, we're 5-4. Then we got Maryland at home. I think we beat Maryland. We're 6-4. I just don't think Maryland's a very good team. I don't think they're very good. They're decent. They've had some good draft picks, but I don't think they can beat Nebraska at home. After we're now gaining some momentum, we're 5-4, beat Maryland, 6-4. Now we're going to Wisconsin. Wisconsin got Coach Fickle. I don't think we beat
First year.
Have we beat Wisconsin? We beat Wisconsin once since we've been in the Big Ten, right? One time.
Oh, I think
they're like
you're
10-1.
right. Yeah.
They're just a team that have had our number.
Yep.
And until we finally figure out a way for the Little Red for us to beat the Little Red, because I'm gonna tell you what, Coach Barry Alvarez is from Nebraska, played for Nebraska. He took everything he knew about Nebraska and took it to Wisconsin. That's why I call them the Little Red. They ain't nothing but Nebraska 2.0. You know, they copied everything we did. But I think that they beat us because they got a strong defense back.
Yeah.
And they're at home. I just feel like they edge us out. So 6-4. Iowa Hawkeyes come to town. As long as Brian Ferentz is the OC at Iowa, I'm picking Nebraska to win that game. 7-5. So I say Nebraska 7-5 this year. We finally get to a bowl game and we finally get over 500. That's my pick.
I like that. I really do. And I dig the fact you actually went through each game. Thank God somebody did, because I'm throwing a number out there and people are gonna probably roll their eyes when I do. That's why I go last, so it doesn't matter.
But here's the thing that's shaky. We can win Illinois and we can win Colorado. So those are two games that are just I can't get a full like definite. Like there's some games like Michigan, I don't feel confident with that game, right? Going to Wisconsin, I don't feel confident with that game, right? Like there are some games that we're thinking of that we just know that they're not going to win.
All right, Kenny. Yeah, guess what, man? It's your turn. Yeah, I'm trying a little bit of a different layout. So yeah, it's gonna looks funky. I figure, if we're on the spotlight here doing predictions, yeah, I should have done that for Clester. But I'm listening instead of looking. So
yeah, I was looking at the schedule because I haven't paid it any attention. It's gonna be quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Kenny.
Minnesota L. Colorado possibly loss. Northern Illinois, Louisiana Tech, victory. Michigan, I have an L. Illinois, are we better than Illinois? Oh, Illinois, not new. L. I think Northwestern's going to give us problems, but they're in so much turmoil, like Clester said. Cats against the world. That was silly for them to wear those. We should get a win. Purdue, are we better than Purdue? Hopefully it's a win. Michigan State, depends on which Michigan State team shows up. Are we better than Michigan State? I can't say yes or no. I'm going to say 5-7.
Oh, damn, Kenny. Damn.
But guess what? It's better than what we were last year. How about that?
Very true. And hey,
it's an improvement.
They also are taking 5-win teams to bowl games to fill the new bowls and stuff.
Yeah, it's an improvement. So anything better than what we won last year is an improvement, right?
Good job. We can still go bowling.
Good job, Coach.
So we can still go bowling.
Yeah.
All right. All right. For me, it's pretty simple, guys. You know me. I'm diehard. I drink the Kool-Aid every year. I guzzle it. I can be unrealistic. I can be overly fanatic. To me, look, guys, there's two things I think is going to happen this year, and you guys are going to laugh, and I'm so glad Clester's muted because he's going to probably fall out of his chair. Here's two things I think are going to happen. We're going bowling this year. Now, Clester agreed on that one already. Here's where I'm probably going to lose a lot of people. We're going to the Big Ten title game. See? No. Kenny, my man. We're going. We are going. This year, Rhule. I know Rhule doesn't have a great track record on his first year. Temple, Baylor. It was rebuilding. But look, I'm sorry. I don't care. I love what he's doing. The players have already seemed to have bought in. Guess what? I'm all in. I don't give a damn. We're going to the Big Ten. We're going to Indianapolis, baby. We're going to Indianapolis.
They already went to Indianapolis for the media day.
Hey, I know, and they were just getting the layout of the field, just getting the layout. They just need a layout. That was it, Kenny. That was good one, dude.
Brian, listen, man, you lose credibility when you start saying stuff like that.
I know I do. I always do.
Oh,
I love your podcast, but you can't be making those kind of claims, man.
Oh, man. In the words of Rick James, it's a hell of a drug. Man.
All right, guys. All right, real quick. One more new thing I wanted to do this year is I wanted to give a shout out to, we're going to call it Husker Army Junior Cadets. And I want to give this to all our watchers, listeners out there. If you have a young child of yours that is a Husker fan, just tag us in any post on Twitter and let us know why. Give us a picture of it, and we'll give them a shout out on here. And they'll be a junior cadet of the Husker Army podcast. So for this week, I want to give a shout out to Mason Woodcock here in Fremont, Nebraska. He's a great young man. Just started a job at Subway. Congratulations, dude. And a Husker fan, and I know his dad is as well. Chris, love you, brother. Thank you, man. So shout out to Mason Woodcock for this. Thank you for watching and listening, dude. Really appreciate it. So, guys, here we are. End of the first episode for season 2. We've got our predictions in. Clester's got us winning season 7-5. Kenny, the opposite flip flop, going 5-7. Me, the person that probably should be committed into a mental ward and put in a padded room, but given a TV for every Saturday. That's all I need. So,
Listen, man. Hey, listen. I appreciate y'all having me on, man. Maybe I may have to come back through later on in the year. We could revisit our picks.
absolutely. Maybe even get a duel with us as well.
Yeah, with Troy too. We need to get Doom on here.
Oh man, let's get you know what? That'll be later. Let's do mid-season maybe. Maybe mid-October, something like that. Clester will get you. We'll get a duel. We'll get Troy Dumas on here. Dude, let's have a reunion for you guys, man. Maybe even the bye week.
Bro.
Maybe a bye week. Then we don't have to talk about a possible loss. So we might do that. So all right, everybody, I gotta thank you guys for watching, subscribing. You know what to do. Find us on YouTube, Husker Army Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Husker Army Pod. Same on Instagram. And you'll find whatever we're doing because now that it's football season, we're gonna be posting like crazy. So, guys, I would love to thank my guest today, Mr. Clester Johnson. And it sounds like we're going to have you on again, sometime this season.
Yeah,
awesome.
Do it. Let's do it.
All right. Husker Army, you know the deal. At this point, at ease, and you are all dismissed.
Peace.